Max and Chloe had just waited out the storm at the lighthouse and it was now daybreak as they slowly drove through the town keeping an eye out for any survivors. "Chloe, I don't think anyone made it," Max said as she slowly inches closer to her. "But, my mom, and David, they can't be all gone," Chloe said as she stopped the car and shook her head in disbelief. "I made the choice, Chloe, and I couldn't lose you," Max says, trying to comfort her, reaching out for her shoulder, but she shrugs it off. Chloe continued driving towards her mom's diner, but as soon as they arrived they saw the amount of destruction left by the storm. They stopped the car and slowly walked towards it as they see one of the large fishing ships lodged into the diner. "I have to check on Mom," Chloe said as she rushed into the already unstable diner. "Mom, where are you?" She walked over to the counter but there was no sign of her, but what she did see shocked her. It was Frank Bowers with a look of utter fear etched on his face and his cold hands clutching his dog in his arms. Chloe backed away slowly into Max, who immediately hugged her from behind and put her hand to Chloe's face, covering her eyes. Slowly Max turned her around and Chloe kept her eyes shut as Max hugged her tightly. "We will be okay." "Why did you choose me? What's so special about me, Max? Please give me an answer." But Max just held her tight as she cried into her shoulder. After a while Chloe was finally calming down a little. "Let's go to the dark room. David could still be alive," she suggested, a sudden realization hitting her. "What is it, Chloe?" She smiled slightly and looked at Max. "The darkroom was a sort of bunker, right? David could be okay?" Max immediately dragged her to the truck and they hopped in, speeding for the barn. They arrived but saw just wreckage around. "What could have done this?" Chloe asked, looking confused. "I think it was a flash flood," Max suggested as she stepped in a lot of mud and water patches. "Oh no, no," Chloe muttered, bolting into the barn. As she rushed down she could already see some water on the entrance. No. Why? They opened the doors to the darkroom and just saw all the equipment spread out everywhere, having been knocked around by the water that got in. "At least it's draining out," Chloe said hopefully, but the helplessness was present in her voice. They got into the next room and saw all the folders spread out everywhere in the shallow knee-high waters. Max hears a loud grunt and they immediately rush to find David still alive but pinned and pushed down by a giant piece of the roof that had collapsed. David looked to their direction, clearly knowing his situation is bad. "Hey, you, how is your mom?" he asks, gasping between words and pain. Chloe kept a blank face and just stared down at the ground, trying to help him but not replying. "Oh, so she didn't make it," he said, coughing dark blood. David looks at it in his hand and he knows nothing can save him. Meanwhile in the back Max was walking to help Chloe, but Mr. Jefferson's body suddenly surfaces from the water with a bullet hole in the center of his head. She kicks it away in anger by seeing it, but as she does this it creates a ripple and one of the folders shakes in the water, releasing images that float towards Max. They are turned over. So she picked them up and sees pictures of Rachel, each of them dated. "This still is just disturbing as when I found it." At the bottom of the image, she notices a date and then it hits her. "I know what I have to do." David has slowly fallen to his wounds in the back and Chloe stops her struggle to get him out but sees Max just standing in the corner. She charges there and turns Max around. "Why the hell didn't you help?" Max seemingly snaps out of it and looks Chloe dead in the eyes, crying. Chloe stops and just looks at her. "I'm sorry, okay, that you had so much on your shoulders. So much of my problems on your shoulders," she says in a low voice with tears still running down her eyes. Max started to smile and slowly brought the picture to Chloe's face. She looked at it and just stared at it blindly till it connected with her. "Are you saying you can?" Her face slowly lit up as she realized Max was holding a photo taken a couple of days before Rachel disappeared that had been taken and stored in the darkroom, from the looks of it, by Nathan at school. "But wait, if you do that picture jump, won't it destroy everything left?" "And what about you?" I saw what these jumps do to you, Chloe said with concern. No, it will be part of the same storm but maybe stronger, or one could hit earlier and we would have to, Max answered, looking skeptical but ignoring the main dangers. Well, I have nothing more to lose. Except you, so please don't die on me, Chloe said, acknowledging what Max was about to do. I will, Chloe, if I can save her. Then maybe, just maybe, we can have our happy ending. Max stared at the photo intensely before her vision started to blur, but before she went, Chloe quickly kissed her. Come back to me, and if you are in danger, don't hesitate to come back, even if it means leaving her, are the words Max heard as she faded from view and she felt thrown into a void. She immediately woke up in her house in Seattle and checked the date, looking around at everything. It still feels weird. She immediately ran to the living room and saw her parents seated watching TV. Hi Mom, hi Dad, I just wanted to ask, can I go visit Chloe immediately? I haven't seen her in forever. Her parents just stared at her, bewildered. What made you want to go so suddenly? You two haven't talked in years, her mom asks. I miss her because I haven't seen her in so long. Her parents look at each other and shrug. Sure honey, we can go see her on the weekend, her dad said, but before she was about to be thankful, she saw the calendar date and only saw it was Tuesday and Rachel was going to disappear on Friday. I need to go now, Max said in a more passive-aggressive tone, and her parents noticed. We won't be going anywhere with that attitude, young lady, her mom said, clearly upset and mad. This all didn't matter to Max as she realized she was on a more important mission and remembered that she knew her parents' credit cards codes. Fine, if they won't let me go then I'll just let myself go, Max said to herself, now more determined to get it done. Being so close, she waited till they went to sleep and snuck into their room, stealing one card from each of her parents' wallets and some cash. Max is hit with a heavy headache but shakes it off even after noticing the blood dripping from her nose. I know it sucks being here, so no need for it to hurt more. She booked a flight for an immediate plane straight to Arcadia. After a short plane and bus ride, she was now back at Arcadia. You see Mom and Dad, that only took a few hours. Max steps off the plane and quickly makes her way to Blackwell Academy, but on her way she ran into Mr. Jefferson on his way to catch a flight out of Arcadia. Sorry there, young miss, I should really watch where I'm going, he says, putting on a smile that just disturbs Max, but she barely keeps face when she responds, don't worry about it. Her fist was clenched hard as she tried her best to not come off aggressive. Is there any way I can make it up to you? Jefferson said as he inched closer, his hand reaching out for a handshake, but Max quickly slaps it away and it catches him off guard. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just not that into people touching me, but thanks for the offer. He scratches the back of his head, trying to seem apologetic. Oh sorry, I'm always quick to rush to know new people. I like their auras. Hearing those words sent a shiver down her spine as she backed away slowly. Sorry, I have to go, she said, bolting for the exit with just her backpack. Jefferson stood there stunned and waved her away obliviously. The youth of today, always in a rush. I wonder how they will ever get the essence of life, if they never slow down. Max took one last look behind her as she saw Jefferson getting on his flight with him out of the way. It should be easier. I have to stop Nathan. After grabbing a taxi and running for a while, she arrives at Chloe's, but with her headaches getting worse, I have to hurry before I'm forced to jump again. Max gave a loud thunderous knock on the door and kept going till she heard a response. Hold your horses, I'm coming. Minutes later Chloe answered the door and was shocked to see Max standing in front of her. Max, what are you doing here? She asked, looking puzzled. I came to help. I know it doesn't make sense now, but I need you to take me to Blackwell. She reached for Chloe only to be met with a shrug. Really, after all these years, that's all you have to say? Chloe asked, with her look turning from one of shock to anger. Listen Chloe, I need to save Rachel. Save her from what? Chloe asked, a bit intrigued. Just listen to me. We need to go now before Nathan does something that will hurt her. Max just watched Chloe standing there thinking to herself before she heard a voice in her head talking to her. Maxine Clawfield, you've been a very naughty girl. She stepped back looking around confusedly and Chloe stared at her. What are you doing, Max? Is something wrong? Can you hear me? Wait. Are you totally tripping right now? She said, looking confused and concerned. But Max couldn't hear her as this voice was the only thing she could hear. I see that you have been jumping around the timeline. Tell me. What is it you hope to accomplish? Max blinked for a second and saw herself sitting at a bench by the lighthouse, but she hadn't time jumped. I am here to save Rachel Amber. The voice suddenly became louder. What do you mean, save Rachel Amber? What's wrong with her? The voice asked, screaming and shouting in Max's head, only amplifying her headaches. But Max withstood the pain with more blood running down her nose and looked up to the sky where the voice was coming from. I come from the future and Rachel is dead where I come from, killed and assaulted by Nathan Prescott. The voice goes quiet and behind Max, a woman appears behind her. So you are just like me? She asked with a traumatic look on her face. I saw into your mind. I saw the pictures of Rachel. I saw when you dug up her body. Max does her best to hold back her tears, but the woman just falls on her knees. I thought I did everything right. I thought she was going to be and I was going to leave in a few days just like her father asked me, she says to herself, crying. No, there's still time, and from the looks of it you might be able to help me, Max said as she walked to her and offered her hand. I honestly don't know if I can help or not because I don't know what I am right now. What do you mean you don't know what you are? Max asked, confused. Well, let's just say I was put in a position where I had to use all my power or I would die. A lot of help that did, because now I don't even know if I'm alive, she answered, making Max get down to one knee and look at her straight in the eyes. After you help me save Rachel, I will come to save you too. The woman looked at her still teary-eyed. Save my daughter, she said as the world around Max crumbled and brought her back to reality. That was Rachel's mom, she thought to herself as she opened her eyes. Max was being lifted by some paramedics while tied down to a stretcher. What are you doing? Let me go, she shouted, squirming in the stretcher trying to get out. Sorry miss, but you passed out and were bleeding from your nose and mouth. You are lucky that your friend called us. She looked at Chloe, who looked shocked, staring at Max being wheeled into the ambulance. I'm sorry, but I have no time for this, Max said as she clenched her teeth and stretched out her hand trying to hold back screams. Time began to rewind, lagging sometimes due to the strain she was putting on herself as she sees the paramedics drive away in reverse. Chloe rushing in to call them after holding her and shaking her around, till it was back to when Chloe was about to be talked to by the voice, but her body started to feel calmer as if adjusting to the chaotic time jumps. Don't worry, I know everything. I checked your mind already. We had this talk before, the voice of the woman says in her head. Max, are you okay? Chloe asks her, looking concerned. Yeah, I'm fine. I need you to take me to Blackwell now. I will answer all your questions when I can. The two hopped in the car as the voice quickly briefed Max on what had happened in Arcadia since she left and how more people like them were popping up around everywhere. Rachel is able to control the weather, but I don't think she knows how. I thought that would be enough to protect her, but I guess I was wrong. The voice said lowly. Your friend there, Chloe, knows about me and has witnessed my power, even Rachel's, but I can see from some of your memories and thoughts that she never told you. Max looks over to Chloe as she drives. What is it, Max? Why are you staring at me like that? Max looks at her more intensely. Tell me everything about Rachel and her mom. Chloe looked taken back for a second before regaining her composure. There's nothing to tell. Just a family of normies and stuff, she answered with her voice clearly shaky. I know everything about Rachel, her mom and their gifts. Chloe looked stunned as she pulled up to the front of Blackwell. I don't know what you mean, Chloe said, trying to keep her calm, but Max could tell already that she was lying. Her mother told me, but it's fine, keep your secrets, Max said as she hopped out of the car. Chloe just sat in the car gripping the steering wheel and turned to see Max running straight into Blackwell. Rachel, 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 Max got in, screaming with just students staring at her, whispering, what's wrong with that chick? I don't know, but she seems crazy. What does she want with Rachel? People in the crowd whispered, but she didn't care, running faster. Rachel was in the theater practicing with the other students until she started hearing her name being called out in the hallway. Who's calling me? She asked, looking at the other theater kids who just shrugged as they had no clue. She got up and walked into the hallway, looking around for who was calling her name. Rachel, is that you? Max asked as Rachel pointed at herself, nodding yes. Who are why? Before Rachel could finish asking her question, she was pulled into a tight and massive hug. Thank God you're okay. I thought I almost didn't make it. Rachel didn't know how to react and slowly patted Max's back. I know I was in the hospital and all, but I'm fine, she says, trying to break free of the hug, but Max just buries her head into Rachel's shoulder, not letting her go. Chloe told me so much about you. Everyone did. I'm just so glad to meet you myself, Max said as she looked in Rachel's eyes but not letting her out of her tight embrace. So who are you? Rachel asked, confused but no longer fighting to get out of the hug. I'm just someone who cares about you, who never got a chance to unprotect you. What do you mean to protect me? She asked, looking at Max, confused. She was about to answer but felt something off and looked at a window in the theater room behind Rachel into the brushes. You sensed someone there? I did too, but they are gone now. But is it the person that wants to hurt Rachel? The woman's voice asked in Max's head. She only held Rachel tighter, making her blush. I'll keep you safe and never let anyone hurt you again, Max said, reaching for Rachel's hand, holding it softly. But you don't even know me, and I'm pretty sure that I've never met you, Rachel said with a stunned look on her face, but Max didn't care and grabbed her hand, heading for the door. Hey, you can't just tell me to go with you without an answer. Max held her hand tighter as she feared Rachel would run with what she was about to tell her. Look, I want you to stick with me for a while, or as long as it takes, till I'm sure that you're safe. Your mother told me to save you too. Rachel was now planting her feet into the ground. My mom, really? That's such a basic excuse for a kidnapping, she said, annoyed. But when Max heard these words, it sent flashbacks on Rachel's pictures and her body. Your real mother sent me, and I think deep down you know that, Max said as she turned around with tears running down her eyes. The two just looked at each other with a few teardrops running down Rachel's cheeks. Okay, but why? A voice then came to Rachel's head. Because she is the only one that can save you. She knows what will happen. Mom, is that you? Rachel asked, confused and crying, but Max just held her as they walked out of Blackwell. Chloe wasn't there and had left with her car. Guess we will have to take a taxi somewhere, Max said, planning her next move, but Rachel stopped her, but gripping her hand tighter. Let's go to California. Let's leave that as a last resort, because I know how much you want to leave Arcadia, Max said, doing her best to comfort Rachel as they arrived at her house. Welcome to my personal hell, Rachel said, pointing at her house with a glum, cheerful demeanor. But as they walked in, Max's vision began to blur. Not again was her last thought as she passed out.